This series was made for fun purposes. Watch at your own risk. Okay, now I'm not gonna lie, this video was one of the hardest videos I've ever had to make. When making the analysis video for Mickey, it was pretty easy for the fact that Mickey is loved by so many people. Same with Terry. He's hated by so many people. I could have rambled all day about Terry being the worst father. But Frank is a different story for the fact that he is both loved and hated by many. You don't think I read your comments? Frank is basically how my mom feels about me. A manageable disappointment. And believe it or not, I finally cracked the code of why I'm a disappointment. I mean, why Frank is both loved and hated by many. And it's all because of his relationship with his children. I know, where's my Nobel Prize? Well, I'm still waiting for my Grammy for the remix I made of Mickey.
Ian? Ian here? Ian. Damn, Gallagher.
With what's happening right now, I don't know what will come first. The Shameless DVD? Or one of the two awards I'm receiving. Anyway, today I will show you why Frank Gallagher is one of the most loved and hated characters on Shameless. Frank isn't your typical, hey sport, wanna play catch with the football? Sure dad, go long. Whoa, good job sport. Thanks dad, I love you. Oh, I love you too sport type of dad. And no, I don't want to talk about it. But instead he's more of a
I would like to report a negligent situation
type of father. Frank has screwed over the Gallagher children more times than I've ever screwed in a light bulb. And that says something. In season 3, episode 3, May I Trim Your Hedges, after watching the news report about a child that was diagnosed with cancer who had the chance to meet the Chicago Bulls, Frank gets the idea to get an autographed merchandise that he can then sell onto eBay. Frank shaves Carl's head and lies to Carl about the type of cancer he has. And the sad part about this is the fact that Carl begins to believe these lies and believing that he is dying. Carl in season 3, episode 4, The Helpful Gallaghers, begins to say his goodbyes in very subtle ways.
I just want to say thanks for being a great sister. Stay away from people with cancer, dude.
But it's still just very heartbreaking, even telling Frank that he loves him.
I love you, Dad.
Luckily, Frank doesn't get what he wants at the end.
What the hell am I supposed to do with a trip to cancer camp?
Never been to camp.
But instead, Carl enjoys the camp and survives the cancer. Now, this is something that is mild, using one of his kids for his advantages, yet ends up with nothing. But something he's done that is the worst possible thing would be when Frank called CPS on the Gallagher children. In season 3, episode 2, The American Dream, Frank returns home, with Debbie being nothing more than ecstatic. Frank proceeds to push Debbie away, wears and destroys Fiona's clothes,
Found him upstairs in my room.
eats Jimmy Steve's chicken, uses Carl's toothbrush, almost burned down the house. Debbie babysits Jaime and asks Frank to help her stop him from crying. After helping her, he then proceeds to ask her for money and leaves her out in the dark. Frank comes home from a night of drinking and begins to argue with Lip and Ian about how he doesn't live at the Gallagher house anymore. Frank seems to be leaving, but then yells out,
Charge! Run!
and runs upstairs with his friends and immediately runs into Debbie's room. Debbie begins to plead with the other Gallaghers, telling them to stop hurting him. But things take a turn for the worse as Frank falls onto Debbie's school project and proceeds to say,
That's a piece of shit anyway.
which is terrible. Debbie throughout the whole episode had been talking about the project, asking Frank to help,
Can you help me with my social studies project?
making the project that she babysat Jaime, and all of her hard work is ruined after her father, who she looked up to, broke it. Frank goes to the alibi and begins looking for a new home, but everyone denies him. When asked why he can't stay at his home, he says,
Ungrateful little shits! That's why.
Frank then decides to call CPS on the children after. How exactly is it the Gallagher's children's fault that Frank came into the house and began messing things up? Frank's selfishness took over as he's hardly thinking about the kids and instead believes he's the victim in the situation. Kate, the bartender, even tells Frank,
That is an all-time low. Even for you, Frank.
Flash forward to season 3, episode 5, The Sins of My Caretaker. CPS comes to the Gallagher house when it looks like a circus, which then leads to the Gallagher children getting taken away in the next episode, season 3, episode 6, Cascading Failures, which is heartbreaking to see as the children are separated and Fiona struggles to get the kids back. When asked by Fiona for help, Frank begins to ask for things that he needs.
Seeing as how you need something from me, maybe I need something from you. For starters, I would like to be shown the respect which I deserve.
I believe I'm already doing that.
And this one is non-negotiable. I want free roam of my own house.
The first thing Frank thinks of when helping Fiona clean up his mess is that he needs things in return. At the end of the episode, Fiona finds out that Frank was the one that called DCFS, and as she listens, you can see the face of anger and betrayal in her face. In the next episode, season 3, episode 7, A Long Way From Home, Frank shows up to the courthouse without a lawyer and finds out Fiona found out a way to keep the house under Aunt Ginger's name.
Aunt Ginger passed away.
But the only thing Frank cares about is the money, as he mentions he won't be getting any more checks.
No more checks to cash either. Fuck you very much.
Always about the money, isn't it?
And the first thing Frank does after the court has decided to let Frank keep his parental rights and grant Fiona guardianship is go to the bar and begin to drink. And when asked where the kids were, he says,
Fuck if I know.
Frank has always been selfish, which makes him such an unlikable character. Now I know that Frank has many other terrible things he's done to the Gallagher children that just makes everyone rage with anger. But Frank sometimes has a soft spot for his children that just makes you feel sorry for him and almost love him. But before we move on, let's do some honorable mentions I may not have mentioned about why we hate Frank.
Frank, you're not wanted here.
Why, Sean? Why am I not wanted here? Am I a disappointment? Have I disappointed you, Sean?
I need you to sign a form at my school, or else I can't go anymore.
Why would I do that?
I want to go to school, Frank.
Well, people in hell want cold beer. What's in it for me?
Frank doesn't live here anymore.
Yeah, well, just because he don't live here anymore doesn't mean you don't know where he lives now.
Put the bat down, pick up the phone, and tell him to get us the $6,000 he owes.
Or we'll come back and use the bat on you.
Because you're also going to be here to take care of Carl. He needs you to show up for him at parents' night to discuss behavioral problems.
Well, go talk him out of it.
They want a parent, a real parent.
Hell no, I won't go.
Daddy! Hi!
Hello, Pumpkin. Did they expel Carl?
Come on, guys. Let's go.
Have you ever lost a bet? Well, I did. Why do you think I'm doing this YouTube channel? Oh, you thought I was bored at home because of the quarantine. Well, yes, I am. Anyway, enough about me. Frank Gallagher has always been someone that's willing to take on any challenge, even if that means he's broke. In season 2, episode 1, Summertime, Frank ends up in a bet.
Yeah, I got taped it twice, man.
Oh, bullshit!
Gran says I did.
I'll see your Gran and add 9 more. 10,000. An American legal tender says you cannot get tasered twice and not soil your tighty-whities, much less keep standing.
The man succeeds in the challenge, to which Frank now must give the man $10,000.
Where's my 10 grand, motherfucker?
But Frank doesn't even have $2. He begins to look around Sheila's house for money to help pay off the man, but can't find any after Karen hides it all. After
What happened last time?
Frank decides to use Liam as this sympathy tactic to get those to give him money as he walks around on the streets acting as if he was a disabled homeless person. Frank's scheme is cut short after the man he lost the bet to take him and Liam. They decide to keep Liam until Frank gives the man his $10,000. Frank seems concerned as he tells the man,
You can't keep Liam.
but when threatening his toes, Frank tells the men they could keep Liam. Now, yeah, that seems terrible enough, but Frank then says,
I'll be back, buddy. I promise you.
which is pretty sweet. Throughout the episode, Frank tries to earn money
It's in literally the easiest way
with
possible.
trying to sell drugs to earn money and even sleeping with gay men. After a long day of trying to earn money, Frank goes to Sheila's telling her
Done
that
everything I can think of, and I still didn't make enough money today.
he then says,
I think I might have really screwed up this time.
meaning that he understands that what he has done was terrible. He loves Liam so much that all day he was planning on trying to earn just enough money to get him back. Now, no, Frank didn't get Liam back on his own, but instead got some help from the Gallagher children. Later on in the episode, Frank explains to Fiona that what he had done was stupid.
I didn't mean for that. It was a joke.
He even tries to explain to Fiona what he was trying to do to make up for his mistakes.
I tried to make enough that I
but is sadly thrown out of the house. Now, I understand both sides. Fiona's upset for the fact that Frank almost let Liam die, but all day Frank was trying his hardest to actually get Liam back, even if that meant he had to do things he really didn't want to do. But speaking of Fiona, I've always believed if Frank had to choose who his favorite child is, it would be Fiona Gallagher. Now, I could ramble on for hours about why he loves Fiona, but if there were one moment I had to choose, it would be in season 4, episode 11, Emily. Frank is in the hospital after his liver transplant. You know, the usual. But soon comes a girl named Emily who has a heart condition.
I need a new heart.
After being punched in the balls, Frank is awoken from his coma and... I'm sorry. After being punched in the balls, Frank is awoken from his coma and loses his memory of everyone's name, as he calls Sammy, Debbie, and Sheila.
Mom.
Later on, he sees Emily and calls her
Fiona.
Frank then proceeds to tell Fiona that he's sorry for leaving her and Lip when they were younger.
I'm sorry we left you and your brother in Washington Park last night.
He then proceeds to promise Fiona that he'd be a better dad.
I want to be a better dad.
And then offers to take her out to Claire's where they can get her ears pierced.
Want me to take you to Claire's tomorrow? Get your ears pierced.
Okay.
This moment right here shows how many things Frank probably wanted to say to Fiona but never got the chance to. Going back to season 3 episode 7, A Long Way to Go, Fiona proceeds to tell a story of what had happened when she was younger.
We were living out of a car once. Lip and Ian and me were sleeping in the back seat when Frank pulled over. Middle of the night. Told me to take the boys and sit on the curb and he'd be right back. A few hours later, we're still sitting on the sidewalk and Ian's head is burning up. He's hysterical. I don't know what to do. So I ran down the street. Lip under one arm, Ian under the other, trying to flag down help. Would have been easier scoring crack than a ride to the clinic. I finally made it on foot. They said Ian had a fever of 104. Another couple hours, who knows? I didn't find Frank till a couple days later. First thing he asked me was how much money I had on me.
Frank listens to the story, making sure not to make eye contact with Fiona. He was ashamed of himself, and when he finally saw this young Fiona, one season later, Frank basically apologizes to her. And as Emily is wheeled away, Frank begins to cry for her, saying,
No.
Fiona.
Now yes, Frank is under these drugs and just got out from a coma, but those emotions are genuine. Flash forward to season 9 episode 12, You'll Know the Bottom When You Hit It. Lip and Fiona begin to bicker back and forth to the point where Lip kicks her out.
I'm not letting you live here. Okay. All right, not with Liam and not with Franny. No fucking way. Fuck you!
Frank breaks up the fight and tells Lip,
You should spend less time blaming her and more thanking her. It's tough raising 6 kids by yourself. I couldn't have done it without her.
Later on in the episode, Frank watches Fiona heartbroken as she says a speech to everyone in the bar. One Reddit user wrote, "That episode, I believe, really does establish that Frank really is aware of the damage he's done to his kids. I think Frank really sees Fiona as a success child, for not only being the eldest and surviving herself and Monica over the years, but also taking over for 5 younger kids. His love for his children is very strong, to the point where he sometimes feels bad for them. But his connection with Fiona has always been the strongest, to the point where he's seen as an amazing person." Now, here are some honorable mentions I may not have mentioned about why we love Frank.
2 bags of meth, plus 9 grand in a hot tub. That's all we've got.
As you were, sailors.
Men have always had men.
I almost dropped him.
He'll be fine. You won't hurt him.
Every time I look into one of you kids' faces, I see her face looking back at me. She was strong. And you're strong. And she was brave, and you're brave.
I love you, Fiona. My little girl. I always accepted you for who you are. With all of your faults, accepted all of you for who you are. Even when you couldn't find a place in your heart to accept me.
Frank Gallagher's relationship with his children has always been strong, whether that be with Fiona or any other of his children. Okay, maybe not Sammy, but still. And even though he can't financially support them, he's always tried his best to make it up to them, which makes him such a lovable and hateable character. Whew! Okay, I am drained. But in reality, these are the things that I've personally always thought about for Frank. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a big thumbs up and comment down below who you would want me to do next. Also, I want to thank you guys so much for everything. You guys have been amazing for the Sims 4 videos and all the other random videos I just upload. You know, I really love your comments. You guys are so amazing. I really love it. Also, I'd like to shout out these amazing people. Yes, that's you. You're amazing. Thank you. Thank you so much for watching. And as always,
Adios, motherfucker!